Gregory Clarke Sr., and it is a pleasure to be with you on this very first Tuesday. There won't be another first Tuesday of 2026. So, if you're under the sound of my voice, I appreciate you. I thank you for accepting the invite and taking advantage of this possibility that we are going to be in teaching and conversation as we're in this wonderful series beginning this head of the calendar year, spiritual year 5786 we've been in. But the calendar, Gregorian calendar year, which I should feel good about since, my first name is Gregory, is in the year of our Lord 2026. But we're going to have a great time, great time. Once again, for those of you who are just coming in, we just had the opportunity to hear some music. You may have saw a logo, the Galaxy.ai. Yes, I am an affiliate. This is an opportunity for you to allow yourself to have access to so many different AI tools. And probably before the end of this conversation today, I will put that link back up so that if you are inquiring about getting access to various AI tools for a nominal fee, you are worth the investment. And that's what we're going to be talking about here during these next couple of weeks during this arc of teaching. So don't just come this week. Make sure that you're here for at least the next several weeks. We're going to be going through this competently and vehemently. And without further ado, let me start with my fellow Bronxite and fellow Jamaican, Nicole Johnson. How are we doing on this wonderful day?
Good evening, good evening. I'm doing well. Glad to be with the comeback conversation
Excellent.
because I was reading about the Don Road Doctrine and it made my head hurt. So I'm prepared
Yeah,
to learn something else this evening.
yeah. We're gonna look for something positive. We can't. There's a lot of stuff going on in the ethers and some of these individuals' minds that that they're a little unhinged. So as they're moving unhinged, we just have to keep them in prayer and hopefully they don't crash and burn. But as always, it's great to see you and thank you for joining us this evening, Miss Johnson. Mr. Franklin, how are we doing down there in the great state of Florida? What is going on with you, sir?
It's not a whole lot, Dr. Clark.
It's not a whole lot. You in
I'm,
the
I
land
told
of
you
the
I'm evolving.
and that is a good space. That is a good space. Great to hear your voice, and glad to have you with us this evening. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Next
I
up,
feel like this is going to be a great teaching too. I don't know why I just feel that.
I believe so. I believe so. I like that. Let's generate that space already. That is excellent. And our brother from Nebraska, Mr. Antonio Jackson, is in the space. How are we doing today? How is it chilly out in your parts, or y'all catching a little warmer temperatures? What's going
You
on?
know, Dr. Clark, it's warm. Okay. We
Okay.
prayed, yeah, I've been praying mild weather for Nebraska. Okay.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I know since you're in the middle of the country, that means you're going to share it as it moves east. So you keep
That's
saying
right.
that.
Send it.
You keep saying that. We respect that and honor that. We are in concert with you. Thank you for joining us once again today.
The title caught me. I tried to get past the title. I said, "Oh God, the title
Okay.
got me. I like it."
The title's a grabber. The
Title
title,
was a grabber.
come
So
on.
was that AI or was that you?
Oh, what the song that she was
No,
listening to?
the title of the title of this chat.
Oh, well, Comeback Conversations is the
Okay.
platform. Probably the sign that you saw was my affiliate link that allows you to go to Galaxy.ai, which I will put up before we are around the end of the teaching. So, for those who may not have caught it, if you're looking for different AI tools, especially as we're being expressed in that, to have the tools that can help you and, you can make an investment in Galaxy.ai, which, once you click the link, it gives you the full explanation. So if you're willing to make the investment in some of the tools, Galaxy.ai helps you get some other tools as well for a very competitive fee. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that was a link that you saw at the beginning. So yes, we're making sure our community has access to get their AI on. And it's great to have you here once again.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. And once again, I have to give honor to whom honor is due. The young lady who was chosen to spend life with me. Sometimes I could be a little rough. Sometimes I can be a little gruff. But when you recognize that, iron sharpens iron, she always keeps me sharp. She always keeps me elevated and alleviated. And God bless that. God bless that. None other than my very own Dr. Cheryl. Now, I was about to say her middle name, but Dr. Cheryl Clarke. I was about to act the fool. But Dr. Cheryl Clarke, how are we doing this evening?
I'm fantastic, Dr. Clarke, and I can't wait. I was intrigued by your title as well for the Comeback Collective and the Dynasty Path. So I'm excited about it.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So it's great to be with all of you, and I know other people will be joining. Some of them had other commitments, and they've already let me know they'll come back in where they fit in. But we're going to get into the teaching. We are not going to wait. We're not going to belabor long. We're not giving the orange man any more about time or space, because then that does not work. And so we are going to get into the teaching. And as we are dealing with this dynasty path, it is so, so important. And as always asks Ms. Johnson, can she see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So as you can see, this is the Dynasty Strategy. This is week 1 of the Dynasty Path. And we're talking about building wealth that serves generations. Wealth is not about excess. It's about continuity. Legacy is designed, not accidental. True wealth serves generations, creating security and opportunity for those who come after us. And as we have a scripture as a reference, a good person leaves an inheritance to their children's children. And that is Proverbs 13 and verse number 22. And of course, this teaching is by me. And I always, for this series, giving credit to Nicole. She has sent me some information which sparked my interest, which put me back in the time frame of what I did my dissertation for, which allowed me to become a doctor, to have my doctorate of ministry. And it was about financial literacy and how that can impact not only African-American males, but I started to recognize we as a community as a whole, as you can see by the imagery, we all must be in those spaces that we can have a dynasty strategy. And it's not about just implementing things for resources, but it's position ourselves in the proper mindset. So even if we do get some resources in our hands, we know how to handle it and know how to handle ourselves. Because we've heard the horror stories of seeing the people, even probably whoever won that 1.8 billion Powerball, they are in a different mindset right now. And depending upon how they moved prior, that money could either be a blessing or something that they're going to need therapy around. And I know my wife is a very powerful and anointed marriage and family therapist. So if that person's out there and need a good therapist, go check out Dr. Cheryl Clarke by her means and make sure that you put yourself accordingly. But let us go into this conversation. I'm going to ask Dr. Cheryl, can you read this slide for me, please?
I think so. I'm on my phone. The survival to stewardship. The mindset shift that separates generational wealth from temporary success begins with understanding the difference between reacting and designing. Most families are trained to earn from paycheck to paycheck, spend on immediate needs, react to financial crises, repeat the cycle endlessly. Dynasty thinking trains us to store wealth systematically, structure assets intentionally, govern resources wisely, transfer with purpose. Teaching point: money unmanaged becomes stress. Money governed becomes security.
Thank you so much. And why is that so important? Let's think about that teaching point for a second. We can sit here and be in a space where we're saying that, we're looking for the most high deity, Yahweh, Jesus, however it is you call God or actualize yourself with God. You know, regardless of the fact, we look for those resources that come in our hands. But now, do we move in a space that we are being responsible for it? As you can see at the top of the slide, it talks about for survival to stewardship. There are too many people these days who are still moving, especially in the beginning of 2026, since we still are on the tail end of choices or manifestations that may have happened in 2025, that could be moving in survival mode. That means they get some dollars and it's about hurriedly taking care of responsibilities, and then the money actually becomes a stressor, instead of being in a space where it can be a developer. And the reason why being a developer is so important, because the Most High has never given us resources for us to stress over it. You are able to either use your gifts and talents. Some of us may till from the ground. Some of us may use our mind, but either way, or somewhere in the middle. But you start to recognize, how are you well positioned to allow yourself to not see money as a stressor because it's moving in an unmanaged space, to where now, once your mindset is starting to become in that evolutionary space, you start to recognize how money, if it's governed correctly, that's why I had to put that there specifically, when it's governed correctly, becomes security, because now what starts to happen is the money starts attracting other things. You're positioning your money towards wealth possibilities. You're starting to see that money is supposed to be a multiplier. If you're not seeing your money as a multiplier, even though you're taking care of your responsibilities, as we're seeing that what most families are trained to do, that means that earning from paycheck to paycheck becomes a major stressor. Any thoughts by anyone before I continue on in this thought, before I get into the dynasty thinking? Do any individuals out here, you don't have to call your names, but have there been times where you have moved like most families have been trained to do, especially African-American, Black and brown communities and Black and brown families? Initially, this is how we were trained, to be consumers, to recognize the fact that, okay, by the time we got our paycheck and took care of our bills, we're already stressing or already in that mindset, which can affect our health, which can affect our mental health. And all of a sudden, okay, we got to get back on this grind again, because can't wait till we get to the next check. And it's just an unending cycle that doesn't really produce results. Now, it produces results for other communities, because as we've had in previous conversations, we know that our dollars don't necessarily stay in our communities long enough for it to start touching enough hands, which ends up making it a stressor. For other communities who continue to read resources from those who are mainly moving as consumers, they're the ones that are starting to recognize, okay, they get those resources, they start managing it properly, they start investing in other possibilities, they make those investments, and all of a sudden that money multiplies and becomes security. Any thoughts by anyone as we continue to unfold this subject? I know there got to be a thought. We all deal with money in some form. Who would like to open up the conversation? Because it's not a monologue, this is a dialogue.
This is Nicole. I'll kick it off.
No problem. Go ahead.
I'm from a Caribbean background, so my family is large. The nuclear family, a lot of us got our starts in America coming over as domestic workers. So we're working in the larger mansions or as farm workers. So we're seeing how dynastic families are starting to go. So it's like, okay, so we do have to work super hard, make sure we're paying our bills, and then save, 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 save. The people that we brought over that didn't necessarily have to do all the manual labor just to make a start didn't really adopt that mindset, because they did not see the work it took to start to build wealth. all they saw was wealth. So it was just a tool to get a car, get jewelry, go on trips, to show off. So I think we keep coming back to who we surround ourselves and what we focus on to help determine what we do with our money. And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that thought. She made a very interesting statement and a very interesting opening. Sometimes it's based upon not only our money mindset, but how it is that we had conversations that govern how we handle money. I know there were conversations in my household, as Nicole alluded to. I also came from a Caribbean background, and there were times where, even though I saw good points to how to be in management, I still wasn't positioned in wealth possibilities. I had to get around other individuals to go from the space of just thinking as a worker to now thinking as an entrepreneur. There's a big difference. And even at times we can be creating businesses not recognizing that we are positioning ourselves as workers still. We still have that worker mentality instead of recognizing there's a reason why certain people, especially if you worked in the corporate environments, where certain people may have an air about them, or they walk around, that's the supervisor, or that's the boss, or that's the vice president, or that's the CEO, and they have a certain air about them. Yeah, because they're not moving like the regular worker, even though they're still in the corporate structure. They're moving in a realm where they're seeing themselves in a dynastic way. They're seeing themselves as, I'm going to my office. Whereas most people say, oh, I'm going to my job. I got to go to the office. Well, other people say, even if they go into the office, I'm going to my job because I have to check on my department. See, there's a different vibration, even in the vernacular of speech. And so there's a big difference between people who are moving in survival mode, which is that paycheck to paycheck, nervous about certain things. Now, you should always have different pots to go from. See, it's okay to have one pot that you're getting some resources from, and then another pot that you're getting resources from. And then you start to recognize how you take some of those resources and invest. And then you're building for, not only for your children's children, as we saw in Proverbs 13, but then you start to recognize, how can you position yourself for those days that maybe you don't want to work as much. Because we're moving in a new vibration and a new dynamic where the whole sense of retirement is not really retirement as they used to think of it. You can't look at retirement as something that, oh, I'm going to retire from work and I'm going to sit around and do nothing. That's not how retirement goes these days. Retirement means, okay, you may have retired from doing something from day to day, but your ability to still use your gifts and talents is still there. The wisdom that you're moving now as an elder is always going to be paramount for someone else, and that is still a valuable resource. So anyone else, any thoughts before we move on from this side? Because, as even the thought where it says the mindset shift that separates generational wealth from temporary success begins with understanding the difference between reacting and designing. There are so many times that we move in a space where we're only reacting to our funds. Oh my God, these bills came in. I got to pay these bills. And by the time you pay the bills, that becomes a stressor. Whereas other people who are managing or seeing their money starting to be really governed, now all of a sudden that money is being designed to say, okay, I'm gonna send some of these. I got responsibilities. Okay, we need to take care of these responsibilities. But now I got this other portion of the resources in my hands. They're going back out to work. They're going back out to work for me. Or as some of you may have heard me say at times, it's always good to have pregnant money. Because if your money's coming out and all of a sudden they bring back some other friends, usually you say, you know what, you don't want your children to go out there and come back and says, I'm pregnant or I got someone pregnant. You're sitting there, okay, we just add it to the family. But if your money is pregnant and it says, well, I had $10 out there and all of a sudden the $10 came back as 25. You're not going to be mad at the $10 for coming back as 25. Because now your money is going out there being a multiplier. Go ahead, Dr. Shah. I see you just raised your hand.
Yeah. I wanted to say, I want us to look at something, Dr. Clarke, and we did have the same concept, but I was in something with some psychologists, and you remember, I'm just going to say this remember we talked about the delayed gratification. I know we talked about this before.
Yeah, but please bring that thought up again, because maybe
Yeah.
certain people need to hear about that delayed gratification. Yes.
So they did a study some years ago, and Dr. Clarke I'm going to go somewhere with this, but it's going to be a little different. So in this study, it says that they was giving out children marshmallows. It's the marshmallow study, and please go look at it when you get a chance. So in the marshmallow story, they put out a couple of marshmallows and they left the room. And they did the study, and they said the children that did not take the marshmallow and saved it, and the ones that ate it, long term, they followed them, had better success. Well, I mean, less success. The ones that waited. They said, wait for the marshmallow for 20 minutes, I'll be back. And so the kids that ate it, they followed them, and they didn't do so well as the one that waited. So this is my point, Dr. Clarke, and everyone else on here. What they found out is that the children that ate it, sometimes they came from a household that maybe that's all that they was going to have. And it was unsure if they were even going to have something for later. So they ate it then and there. And the study was the study skewed? Because the whole simple fact is a lot of us don't get the teaching that you're doing right now. And a lot of us may not have the scarcity mindset of saying, I am in survival mentality. So a lot of us are in survival mentality, and we got to be taught how to begin to move with this. And a lot of African Americans, black and brown people are labeled as, it's survival of the fittest. But the thing is, it wasn't the lack of vision, because you can look at Black Wall Street. It wasn't the lack of vision, but we got to look at the system that restricted access, that still restricts access, that still restricts safety, that still restricts our way of being educated. So I think, coming back to your dynasty plan, I think that we really need to revisit this. And when COVID came, we were in a project situation once again. And it really took our children back. A lot of them are struggling with reading, socialization, and a lot of things that are happening, money, and a lot of things are in place that we have deficiencies in. So as you take your time over this week, I don't know how long you're going to do the series, but as you take your time, just one point that we need, and maybe the slide that you're going to do is just one slide or two slides, just one point that we need. What is the one thing that we can do to begin to move us to the next level, and possibly not just be able to be in survival mode all the time, but let us learn one thing, so we can design the future and stop being reactivated to it, because we are from that trauma point of what has happened to our fathers' fathers, mothers' mothers, and now we're just moving from paycheck to paycheck because that's all we know. So you teaching this is amazing, because now we get to understand, what does that look like? Because I got to give Dr. Clarke credit, because my mother was one of those people. Am I taking too much, Dr. Clarke?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was one of those people that Dr. Clarke showed me how to save. My mother had horrible credit, and she doesn't mind me saying it. My mother did not save. She was to borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and we was not homeowners. And then when Dr. Clarke came in my life, my credit was jacked up. He was like, "You're gonna learn how to pay this, save here, move this over here." And he taught me step by step. Now, did I go kicking and screaming at times? Yes, because it was kicking up on how I learned things. So I think if you take one thing at a time, Dr. Clarke, and because your dissertation was so great, and how you could just take one point and show us how to begin to move that, I think it will be able to understand why we do not activate the delayed gratification, because we don't know if we're going to have anything for tomorrow. And I'm complete.
Well, excellent. That's why this series is going to be it's going to be at least 7 weeks. Right now we have it at 7, but I have no problem in extending it even longer, because this is something that I know for 2026 is going to be one of our governing points as we continue to recognize our ontology of being. But part of that being is recognizing how we can shift our mindset. And the way that we govern money will always keep us either in one or two spaces. Either you stay as a worker, or you eventually become that person that can move in a space where now money is working for you instead of you just working for it. So as we go through all these weeks, there are times where, please, as you saw what Dr. Cheryl Clarke did, if you have a question, raise your hand, or interject in the space. Because remember, like, as I'm always going to continue to say with all of my teachings, it's not a monologue. It is definitively a dialogue. That's why this platform is a comeback conversations. We're here to have a conversation. And if it's something that you may not grasp, or something that you may have a question about that I have the ability to answer, please. The only dumb question is the one you don't ask. As I see Ms. Johnson has her hand raised.
Yeah, one quick point. You mentioned pregnant money, which I had never heard the concept of. So I went to my AI tools, and the point I got was, well, this is a quote from my AI: pregnant money emphasizes expectancy rather than outcome. It highlights process capital information instead of results profit realized. This framing often encouraged patience, delayed gratification, going back to Dr. Cheryl's point, and disciplined stewardship. So thank you for a new term. I'm complete.
No problem. And it's all good, because that delayed gratification, even though Dr. Cheryl was sharing it from a space from a psychological standpoint, but it also, I remember being in school, and that's how we learned. I was lucky enough to go to some of at least one of the best high schools they consider in the country, which was Brooklyn Technical High School in New York City. But one of the things that they stressed to us there was that we were in a preparatory environment. We were in an environment that was training us to think systemically, breaking some of those barriers that the system itself was attempting to kind of migrate Black and brown people in. And that's when I had the opportunity to start mingling with other communities and started to see, sometimes visit other people's homes instead of just going back up to the Bronx. Sometimes I stopped off in Manhattan, or we visited someone's house who lived in, Park Slope in Brooklyn, or, went to Queens and saw someone live in a nice, a big old house that, I'm used to in an apartment. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. The world is not just limited to what we were just exposed to. Sometimes you have to put yourself in the process of creating the exposure for yourself. Because systemically, and even to the system right now in 2026, as we see some of the things that are happening geopolitically, no one's going to give you anything if you're not willing to go out there and go search it out for yourself, do it for yourself. And even if you don't understand, start hanging around the right people who can help shape and develop you. And that's why we're doing this as a community. We're not doing it as, I'm just talking down to people and you're here. No, we are here. And as we continue to move as a group and continue to develop and continue to grow this community, as we grow these conversations, we start to recognize that we will move from this, some of us who may be in survival mode, to the point that we're making that you will end up in stewardship. Now we're going to go on to the next slide. Make sure, there we go. Stage 1, creating the capital pool. This is just for this week. Liquidity before lifestyle. See, this is how the rich move. This is how the affluent move. This is not something that's usually taught in schools. This is stuff that we should be getting from like when we're in second grade or third grade, just to know about, piggy banks and stuff like that. Why are we putting that stuff away in a piggy bank? Why are we talking that point that Dr. Cheryl alluded to about delayed gratification? This is the reason why, because most people who are consumers are looking for everything now. We're moving in that microwave mentality. Everything has to be instant. We got to take care of these bills. Everything becomes anxious. And it's not about negating or minimizing people who may have anxiety. I'm not talking about anxiety. I'm talking about there are times that we may move anxiously, even if you're not diagnosed, or even if that's not a position in your life. We may move too anxiously with our money because we're positioned as consumers. And so when I'm giving you the stage one right now, and we're going to settle on this as a part of the tool, because some of the conversations that I have with Dr. Cheryl, some of the conversations that I sometimes have with certain other individuals that I coach and mentor, we start to recognize we have to start creating these atmospheres of possibility. So build protected capital. Establish reserves that cannot be easily accessed or depleted by external pressures. This is where you start to recognize your investments. This is where, as me and Dr. Cheryl Clarke learned together, this is where you start going, as you can talk about the simple tool that we will get to eventually about life insurance. But life insurance is important. Life insurance is a part of your wealth vehicle. I'm not here to tell you what to get, how to get, stuff like that. I have other individuals that I'm aligned with that I will probably end up bringing on certain conversations and some of these conversations that we're going to have that they may can present some of that stuff. This is not about pushing products. This is about giving you the information so you become well informed. Remember, when you're part of this community, it's not about telling you to do this and tell you to do that. There may be times I may throw out a stock ticker about what I'm investing in. And I will always say, this is what Dr. Gregory Clarke is doing. Now, you as an individual decide that, okay, I heard him talk about this stock or this ETF. Maybe I may jump in this, that, that. That is not up to you to do your diligence. Don't just look at us as, okay, that person is just teaching me something and just tell me go do, without having the requisite background and information. That doesn't help you in the long term. When you create liquidity, the next box, ensure access to funds when opportunities or emergencies arise. And that's what happens to us as consumers. Too many consumers out there, and I remember they were talking about it, that I forgot the data, but I think my memory's pretty good. I think they were talking about 80% of Americans, if they had an emergency of $1,000 or more, could literally throw all their finances out of whack. That's a terrible way to live. But now, when you think about that, that's not just saying that's a black and brown problem. Now we're talking about a money mindset issue. It's not just us, but people who may be positioned in a way where they're living from paycheck to paycheck, or you hear the stuff about payday loans or title loans, especially in the South, many times me and Dr. Cheryl able to go in the South, and you see these title loan places and payday places and all this other stuff. All of that stuff is kind of predatory. But you never see those spaces or those type of businesses in affluent neighborhoods. You have to think about sometimes, why are certain things positioned the way they're positioned? There's a reason for it. And the next slide and the next box is avoid unnecessary exposure. Minimize risk through strategic position and diversification. So that's why, as we're building this dynasty path up with this week one about the strategy, we start to see that the simple tool that I'm explaining right now on this slide is about life insurance as a financial vault. And this is some of the things that me and Dr. Cheryl Clarke said. That's the disclaimer. Me and Dr. Cheryl are actively doing this at this particular moment. So we're not just sharing this, or I'm not just sharing this to you to say, oh, this is something that you could do. No. This is something that we have proven to know that life insurance can at times even be a buffer when you may need to do something. So premiums fund the system. That's number one. Regular contributions build the foundation. So that means if you have a life insurance policy, especially if it's whole life or universal life or one of those things that builds value, as you pay your premiums, you're making an investment in yourself. Because now if that policy could be 250,000, 300,000, yeah, you may be paying whatever it is that they're asking you to remit each monthly, but the affluent recognize that they are willing to pay that or circulate that because they know that, God forbid, if something happens to them, they have something that they can cash out, or they'll have something that they'll have access to that will give them some sort of buffer or liquidity or resources that if they didn't do that, they wouldn't have access to. Cash grows long term. Let's see. Okay, I love the fact Ms. Johnson is giving us some data. Let's see. Only 41% of Americans can pay a $1,000 emergency from savings. 59% cannot afford it. That means over 2 in 5, 43% say they would borrow the money. And this is from 2025. That was from 2025. We're not saying 2020. We're not saying the 21st century. We're saying from just last year. I want you to think about that. That's very major. And the death benefit transfers tax-free. Wealth passes to heirs intact and protected. Do you understand the times when people who are moving and affluent, because it's not so much about being rich. You can look rich and still be poor. There's too many people in our community like that. You can look rich. Oh, you don't see my threads. You don't see my gear. You don't see my drip. It's like, oh, yeah. So tell me, have you invested in some of the companies that you are wearing? Nah, you know what I'm saying? I gotta look good. Oh. But see, the wealthy, at times you would look at them and say, oh my God, they just got on a t-shirt or some jeans and this, that, and the third. Or even if they do have something that is of some sort of designer label, they recognize how to get it or make it, turn that thing into an investment or even a business possibility. So the key phrase is that this is not about dying, it's about positioning. Because sometimes we hear this thought about life insurance and people start running their mind, oh my God, he's trying to kill people off. Oh my God. That's what, and it's sad to say this, but that's how it was positioned in our respective communities. Oh my God, what are you talking about life insurance? What do you mean? What do you mean? We need life insurance. God forbid, we all going to transition one day. How are we protecting what we've earned? How are we even protecting those that we leave? Or you're just here to be a worker. That's not where the Most High has positioned any of us to be. Now, if you choose just to be a worker, okay, that's a choice. If you like living from paycheck to paycheck, that's a choice now. Because even I love something that Dr. Cheryl alluded to when she said that, how she was positioned and what she saw. Now, that was stuff that was governed and shared, and kept passed on. Okay, we got to go out there and work hard in order to make a living. Who told you that lie? Or were you positioned in that lie to keep you as a worker? Okay, while you out there being a good old worker, and we learned this the hard way, especially in our community in 2025, where over 300,000 Black women, especially who worked in civil service or governmental jobs, especially with the federal government, lost their positions because someone was disturbed by the fact that they could have lost the election to a Black woman. You got to look at this. And you'll say, Dr. Clarke, how does that deal with money? Yes, it does. It deals with the Dynasty Path. because that is a possibility which we've seen and proven becomes an interrupter in the wealth possibility and the wealth development of our community. It starts affecting all the other necessary areas of life, or even in the consumer economic landscape that's called the United States of America. So don't be positioned or think that your head is in the sand that what we're talking about, we talk about life insurance or we talk about other spaces, a part of the stage one of this week one. It's about recognizing that all of these things we have to have conversations on, and all of these things we should be implementing. But you implement it at your respective level. I'm not here to force you to do something. All I'm here is to show you a possibility. And if you're willing to take up the possibility and respect yourself enough to do so, then you'll make the appropriate manifestations happen. As we move on to the next slide. Structure 2. Remember, this is still week 1, and they all work together. Structure and governance. Order before abundance. Now, I remember there was a time, especially in our family, especially when my children were younger, they probably used to hate me because my wife would say, or we would come together and say, we having family meetings. And I love this picture because they're sitting, you can look at this family and see, look, we're at the table, the parents as the heads, not just the man as the head. The parents as heads of the family are sitting there with their laptops out. They're sitting there with their children there to have discussions, and you can see regardless if you have paper, or if you're moving it digitally, however it is that you do it. But they're having a conversation because there has to be some level of order. There has to be some level of understanding of how we're moving in our money. We cannot move in our money haphazardly and talking about we're having an abundant life, but we have Jesus. That's the worst case scenario. We have too many people who have Jesus, but at the same time, do not have defined roles for the things that God has given you for you to manage and to govern. We're not here to tell you, just like it says in the good book, you're not supposed to have love of money. That is the root of all evil. And that verse in scripture has been misconstrued, especially in our community, so wholeheartedly. We're not here to love money. Money is a resource. It is a tool which you govern. The Most High is the only thing that, other than your family, you should be loving. But if you know how to use tools, regardless if it was a screwdriver, regardless if it was a hammer, you would be well positioned in all the areas that you can develop in. Because you understand, you can use that screwdriver and put it back in the toolbox. You don't make it, no, never mind. So why do we treat money haphazardly? Or when we get the resources, it's just something that's very fleeting. So to get back on task on the slide, and that was just what my thought from just looking at the image that was generated. Why structure matters. If you don't have structure, you're not going to have anything. Without proper frameworks, even substantial wealth can disappear within a generation. Structure transforms money from a source of potential conflict into a tool for unity and purpose. As Dr. Cheryl Clarke is keeping me up. Money without structure leaks through poor decisions. Love without order creates conflict among heirs. And legacy needs rules, not emotions. And I'll just go to the wisdom insight. Inheritance without wisdom becomes a burden. So even if you're leaving something for your children's children, what is the insight that you're giving them so that they have the ability to work this thing out accordingly? Stage 3 deals with protection and tax wisdom. Stop losing what you build. The greatest threat to wealth accumulation are often invisible, silent forces that erode capital year after year without dramatic announcement. And I'll just talk about taxes. Taxes, up to 40% of wealth can disappear through estate taxes, capital gains, and income taxes without proper planning. And as we go over these couple of weeks and probably even go through some of the information over again, there's certain strategies that we all can be implementing that allow us to not give the government all your hard-earned money after you've accumulated it. There's a reason why people of affluent stages have that generational wealth. That's what we're talking about here. Generational wealth. So please don't just position yourself as someone who's going to be just a worker. Control distribution, you access with wisdom. Dynasty rule, everyone benefits, not everyone controls. Spiritual parallel, God gives inheritance with instruction. Blessing flows through obedience, not entitlement. So sometimes we can be moving in a space that we say just because that person's your family member or this person is aligned with you that they are supposed to be entitled to the blessing. No, all blessings are technically earned because based upon your diligence and your faith, there's a corresponding action. That's why in the Bible it states faith without works is a dead thing. So you said, oh, no, God's just going to give it to me because God's going to. No. Recognize that. You must be in a respective space where you're understanding that even blessings are earned based upon how you have utilized your faith. If you're not utilizing your faith, that means you're waiting for God to do it. And God did not give you the gift and talent or the ability for you to earn a living just to say, oh, I'm waiting for God to do it. That is not the positioning. Middle class adaptation, same strategy, simpler rules, simple tools. You don't need complexity, you need alignment with proven principles that wealthy families have used for generations. Here's your starter Dynasty toolkit. Something that me and my wife have to continually develop and work on. You need a will. Eventually, you want to start to create a trust, a living trust, which helps to avoid probate and maintain privacy while ensuring smoother transfers. Most affluent people don't have stuff in their names. And we'll probably talk about that over the weeks that go along. Life insurance is very important. It's instant estate creation and income replacement for dependents. And family conversations, open dialogue about values, expectations, and financial education, as you can see in the picture. And some of the focus areas, family protection, ensuring loved ones are secure regardless of circumstances. Education funded, investing in knowledge and skills for the next generation. If you have people around you who are not investing in themselves and making sure that they can be in the current, they're going to become more of a burden on you. And peaceful transitions, preventing conflict through clarity and preparation. And lastly, for this week, legacy is a decision. Key truths I wish to leave you with. Number one, wealth is a system, not a windfall, but a design process of accumulation, protection, and transfer. Number two, legacy is intentional. It requires planning, discipline, and commitment to principles larger than ourselves. And number three, structure creates peace. Clear frameworks eliminate confusion and conflict when we're no longer here to guide. Reflection question. If something happened tomorrow, would your family be protected? Would your values continue? Would there be clarity or confusion? We don't just leave money, we leave order. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson. I see you're raising your hand.
Yeah, Yeah, I really let me lower it so it's not stay on there. I really like that wealth is a system concept. So, does that kind of start with, or could it start with not only, planning for, different tools or vehicles that you would, place money in to either grow or whatever? Would that also include maybe idea creation on making the wealth? I don't, I always, you hear a lot about, well, this is where you should store your wealth, da 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 da, but you
Mhm.
never really hear about idea creation, so would that be a step in this wealth creation process?
Well, definitely, because number one, everything starts with an idea. Anything that you see out in the marketplace started in someone's mind, someone's thought pattern, and maybe they thought that this was going to help solve a problem. So one of the things as we recognized from IP, which is your intellectual property, things that you allow yourself. That's why even there are people who become billionaires off of their patents. They don't go manufacture a thing. They created it. They had an idea. And all of a sudden that idea was worth so much that okay, they licensing it out. Because since they own the patent, and since they own the patent, even though they don't have to, make the plastic bottle or make the piece of sheet metal, because of their process, they still receive some level of resources. And if they're being a wise steward based upon that idea, now they may have the right insurance vehicles, they have the right investment vehicles. Even if they're living in their home, they know how to protect the value of their home, or eventually put that home in a trust where the home comes out of their name, or all the different avenues where okay, I'm going to invest in different investment vehicles left and right, because now they're not just thinking about money as something that to have just to prove, oh, I got $1 million. The $1 million doesn't mean nothing, because with inflation will eat away at that million. But if you have that $1 million working for you and it's coming back to you, that $1 million base is coming back to you with returns from over here and returns from over there and interest over there and accumulation over there. Next thing you know, you have something that you're working with. And I love the fact, I think it was a couple of weeks ago when Ms. Johnson shared about when she invested on a particular coin, and we're not giving them any, publicity. They're not advertising with us. But she talked about the fact that even though she still sought out good advice, she said, "Oh, let me see. I have some money. Let me play with it." And she ended up with a 1,500% return on her money. Those things are still available to us. And sometimes, like stock markets and all those things that we're not necessarily in conversations in our respective communities, that they try to make like, oh, that stuff over there. There's a reason for that. They get you afraid of dipping your foot in that Bethesda pool while they're over there benefiting from it. So yes, your ideas are one of the best and much more strategic ways to help you with your wealth generation and wealth possibility. And I hope I answered your question.
Yep, that was great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts before we start to move to a closer this week? We're not going to take long. This is not something where it's going to take 2 or 3 hours. It may take an hour, a little bit over an hour between, teaching and, always do a musical interlude starting around 8 p.m. So I invite you to join each and every week at 8 p.m. You'll hear a little music before we jump into the TV. We don't just pounce on you. And, give me no more than hopefully 75, 80 minutes each week, which you are worth. We can get in and out of these great teachings powerfully. And I see Dr. Cheryl Clarke. First I'm gonna go to Mr. William Riches, and then I'll go to Dr. Cheryl Clarke with probably one of her closing thoughts.
Yes, good evening and happy New Year.
How are we doing, Mr. Riches? I think you're a little low. Your voice is a little low.
Are they low? You hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you a little better.
Okay. Okay, happy New Year. First of all.
Happy New Year.
And what I'd like to discuss actually is about the will. Sometimes they have
Yeah, your voice is going in and out. It's almost like it's bouncing. It's It's like you're moving like it's bouncing, going. You can
Like
hear
I'm
it going.
bouncing. Okay.
There we go. There we go. Much
You hear
better.
me better now?
Yes, much better.
Sometimes in wills, sometimes when people make up wills, there's a lot of restriction, there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of, let's say, execute laws that has to be executed, and who have to execute them. And that plays a role, say, for instance, sometimes when the person died because without it, that's what that data, the will is not enforced. So we look at it, let's say, for instance, this lady, she had like 3 children. And in the will states that the estate what she left behind is only, say, for instance, for her children, not even, say, for instance, if they get married, not even they get married, the wife of them is not supposed to have anything like that. But it's mostly for the children. And the children, they didn't have no children, but one of them were married and one of them were handicapped. So it's like you have a hidden hand sometimes in matters where will is concerned. And then when the execution comes, it's not the person that is that convert the will, but also the will what is bequeathed to someone else. Even say, for instance, a maid, those type of things you have. And when a maid is illiterate, right, there's where the hidden hand comes into play. So sometimes you have like the will has to be executed because upon to law, and it has to be governed correctly. And with those sense, you look at the hidden hand, right, of the things that they bequeath because they're the one that make it up, but the hand, is still in the background. And then you notice that they are always in the forefront, but not saying nothing, but yet participating in what is said by the judge. And then they're able to now make adjustment to certain things. So to make a little short, is like now this person now like two person, two person died. The mother died, but the 3 children what she had, two died and one left over. And the one left over is handicapped. So he's not functional with business. So that one is like taking advantage of because he cannot, handle anything within, let's say, the will. And there's where you have the chat that comes in. And then, they're there for just for their own gain, not for, say, for instance, let's say the confusions of the will for to see that everybody gets the equal share. And there's where the executor come in. But then you have these people who are fighting, right? Just because if you want to set things in order, right, you always have a fight. And the fight is not normally with the person who's who cannot help himself, but it's the person who represents him. And then they just have to execute what the hidden hand is carrying out. And you notice it. Yeah, because you will be able to discern those type of things when you go along. And then the fight still that comes back, like when you're talking about the taxes, that certain things within the will they have to make sure like the estate, the finances of the estate take care of the taxes. And then when you look, all types of fabricated information comes up where the the estate where they have like 2 parts, like 2 parts of land have to be sold to cover the taxes so that the government don't claim anything within the estate. And those things that you find that all of a sudden the hidden hand bring up information out of nowhere, just to get the estate, you know, into the bequeathed, which is a maid. And those things that happen at that time. It's
So,
like,
so it sounds like your story is a cautionary tale about making sure not only are things protected, but to have things structured in a way so that order can manifest and things can be covered.
that is correct. And
Excellent. Excellent.
and then to have the necessary things in place, even though they have a hidden hand.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for your thought. Dr. Cheryl, the floor is yours. There she is.
Yeah, I'm here. I think
Wait a minute. That's an interesting.
I don't know why we're reverberating, because we're totally in another room. Your door open?
No,
Okay.
I just turned it down.
Okay, it's better. No, I'm trying to fix my okay. So I just want to say one thing. I think this was a good start. I think this was great. I am excited. I do think the phase 1, phase 2, we could just take that slower, and one slide is great because you had a lot of information that I think is really, really good. I don't know what the consensus would say in the chat, just to because there was some points on there that I think we can go back and do some homework, like Brother Antonio talked about, like some of the things that what can we create or what can we bring back, I think could be a think tank of us really creating this space as a wealth generation type of thing and actually doing the dynasty pathway. I don't know, what do everybody else think? I just thought that was for me because this was you had some great points on here that we talk about. So I don't know what say everyone else. I just didn't want to do that and just be me.
No
That's what
I see Miss Karen Clarke is in the building. Miss Karen Clarke, what would you say?
Actually, Cheryl voiced some of my thoughts.
Okay.
Yes, there was a wealth of information being shared today, and trust me, you have my head spinning now, because it's like I always knew that there were other things for me to do, but where to start, what do I do? All of that was kind of muddled, so to speak. So what Cheryl alluded to as this being expanded, I like that idea because I realized it's like learning how much I need to learn.
Great. So I already know next week we're gonna go back in some of these same slides and we're going to expound upon some of that information. This is great. No, this is excellent feedback. Excellent feedback. Who else? Mr. Franklin, what do you say? Let's see, do I have Mr. Franklin's head spinning as well? Because if I do, then I definitely know next week we can go over it. I mean, I have no problem with that. This is not a rush. It's not a rush.
So far, I'm loving the information. To me, I think you're going slow, but that's just me talking.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
I'm
But
waiting a big ticket meal right now. I know it's coming around, so I'm gonna wait on that.
no problem, no problem. But definitely there's probably certain things that I can expound upon. And there's no problem of, breaking it down. So next week we will still continue in this. And when you come back next week, we'll probably focus on life insurance. Matter of fact, let me ask you, what would you like me to talk about next week? Would you like me to talk about life insurance? Or would you like me to talk about, focus on the fact of how we should structure and start moving to be structured in wealth? And as I get the consensus from the people, that's what we'll expound upon from this particular presentation next week.
I think the life insurance, but if you speak about that, I would say like speak upon like different companies that are out there as well.
Well, I would say this. Instead of me talking about different companies, what I'll do is probably give you different terminologies so we have an understanding of what works for us and how the wealthy utilize life insurance. Okay, that's great. Do we agree on that? Should I next week talk about focus?
wealth structure. I think wealth
That's
structure.
good.
I think wealth structure because Edward is speaking from a space because he already has us. So Edward, you already had a lot of this information, and this is why you're kind of saying that we should jump over this. So don't listen to Edward right now because Edward, you have Dr. Clarke already with this structure. Am I right, Edward?
You going there? That's right.
So please do not rob the people of the structure. Dr. Clarke got you on the structure. We got you on the structure. So we can't jump over that because the structure is what made you. That's why you kind of caught up to speed. But a lot of people are not caught up to speed, Edward, because Dr. Clarke and I work with you and your wife extensively, and it's been months. So let the people get what Dr. Clarke has. Don't let them jump over that. So this is what he is amazing at what he does. So let him get. Isn't he amazing at work?
Yep.
Exactly. Let the people get the structure. And hi, my sister-in-law.
Hey, sis. How are you?
Oh, well, glad to hear your voice is back. Amen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that flew not well.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Jackson, and then we'll go to Miss Johnson. Mr. Jackson, your hand is up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I do agree with the other Dr. Clarke on the structure because I'm inherently a giver and I can so give to the point where I don't even think about Antonio, period. But I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop that. I just want the structure in place so that I can do more and more of it. If that makes, hopefully that makes sense.
No, that's exactly like how you're from Nebraska. I know you have a gentleman there, Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, and he already stated, all the wealth that he has accumulated. He has promised himself at 95 years of age that he's going to give at least 95% of his wealth away. He's not leaving that much to the couple of family members that he has. He says he's going to be philanthropic. So you making that thought pattern shows like what the JP Morgans did or the Andrew Carnegies did at the end of the 19th century going into 20th century. So of course, yeah, we can definitely, I think the consensus is moving towards wealth structures, and definitely that will be the continuation because this was initially going to be 7 weeks, but I already knew in my mind that there would be certain concepts that we would definitely have to go over and reiterate. So definitely I already know we're going to be dealing with wealth structures next week and before we go any further. So thank you for that, Mr. Jackson. And Ms. Johnson, I saw you had your hand up. And
yes, I was just trying to add onto the feedback train. Essentially, I took this week as the overview, and then we're gonna go into each point individually. For myself, I work systematically. So if it's step one, assess your finances, assess your family structure. So whatever the individual steps are, that would be best for my learning. But to Mr. Franklin's point, I think it would be more helpful to learn about the different insurance structures versus the different companies like term insurance, not life insurance, sorry, term insurance, whole life insurance, stuff like that would be helpful.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we know that next week we'll deal with wealth structures and the different ways that we can start to systemically or how the wealthy or the affluent structure themselves. And then after that, we'll definitely get into life insurance, the different terminologies, the different ways of investment, why certain things cost a little more, because you'll see some of these commercials that will say, you can get $1 million policy for $20 a month, and you're like, you jump on it, yeah, and they come out there and they do whatever they're doing, and next thing you know, you're wondering why after that 10-year, 15-year, or 20-year, that's term. So we'll definitely get into that so we can see the different structures and why, especially as a community, if you're building wealth, you have to have the right insurance structures because even certain things like one thing, and this is the last thing I'll leave before I start to really close for tonight. There are times that you have to circulate your resources or make an investment in stuff that may seem a little bit higher in the beginning, but you start to understand the why of it. And too many times we get caught up, and that's what consumers do. Consumers are looking for so much of a deal that they don't recognize that sometimes you may circulate a little bit more for something of quality that can be beneficial for you in the long term, instead of getting something that was so good that will disappear quickly, or you may have to replenish it quickly. And next thing you know, you start to recognize you end up circulating more dollars. So that's a thought I'm going to leave you with, as we know that next week we're going to get into wealth strategies. And then probably the following week after that, we're going to get into life insurance terms. So we have some meat to chew on and that we can digest. And as we keep developing this think tank, and then as we propose, and I kind of thought that this was probably going to end up being almost a year-long thing anyway, because there's no reason to rush through this information. It's about making sure that we all get it and then how we can apply it in our respective lives. So I thank you for the feedback. I thank you for that being upfront, and this was about being amendable to being able into that possibility. So before we leave, first thing I'm gonna share is give you the opportunity to see, for some of you who are out there looking for different AI tools. There's a company that I partnered up with called Galaxy AI. That is my affiliate link, where you can either take a picture of that right now or jot it down. And if you click that link, that whole link, the galaxy.ai/ref equals Gregory, click that link. And when you get there, you'll see that it'll give you the opportunity to get into AI, a bunch of AI different tools, not just one tool. There's different AI tools that you will get enough credits that you will have the opportunity to see how, if you wanted to find out about Claude or Chat GPT or Midjourney or Suno or cloning your voice, or all those other things that we must be aware of as we're moving in this digital space, then utilize my link and make the investment in yourself. And that helps to benefit this overall program. And, it's another form. And, bringing this information to our community is sometimes we have information that we sometimes keep to ourselves. Instead of just keeping it to myself, it's better to share it, because we need to be in these digital spaces very definitively. Can't walk into them, tiptoeing ourselves. We are in a digital space. We are in a digital world. So we cannot move as if we don't have the ability to move digitally. So, take advantage of that as well as we come down from that one. And for those of you who desire to support this platform, the Comeback Collective Circle, you have the different ways to do so. You can do it via Cash App, where it's $Gregory Clarke DMin, or if you choose to do it via Venmo, it's the same handle without the $, Gregory Clarke DMin, if you have Venmo. And especially for those of you who have Zelle or PayPal, regardless if you're international or not, you can send something to support this platform utilizing the email address esquire971@gmail.com. So until next week, when we'll be dealing with, wealth structures, and we're going to expound upon that so we can all be abreast of the different necessary structures that will allow us to grow wealth and to capture it and allow it to manifest even more powerfully. Can't wait to see all of you next week. And also invite someone else. The link that you received, you can share with your community. Get some more people in it. If you know other individuals who will benefit from this conversation, please, by all means, we want more of a dialogue, and it's not a monologue. So once again, until next week, be blessed, continue to stay focused, and we're going to have a great time in teaching. See you next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night.